talagang this is the first time that I went down to Manila since I was declared a terrorist. So I have been invited several times by Danny Luba to attend the activities of Environmental Defenders Congress, but because of the terrorist designation, I was not able to come. But this invitation, again, I thought several times whether or not I will come, and despite my trangkaso, I decided to come. Thank you for the invitation. Liz, nung pinapakinggan ko yung report ng Global Witness at even sa presentation ni Beverly Lungid, maraming malaking DNI sa Mindanao. Okay? But just to put context on the terrorist designation, cases of financing terrorism, which is now rampant in the Cordillera, let me just run down some of the slides and also to add information, because in the earlier presentations, these were focused mostly in Mindanao. Of course, I will just escape that. This is just the national policies that hasten the that fast tracks the violation or deliberate manipulation of our right to self-determination through the free prior informed consent. Let me tell you that the right to free prior informed consent is a collective right of the people. It's not just an individual right. It's a collective right of indigenous peoples in assertion or in recognition of our right to self-determination. Without respecting or recognizing our right, our free prior informed consent, that is tantamount of neglecting or violating our right to self-determination. Parang isang halimbawa, kung ikaw ay papasok sa bahay ng ibang tao, di ba kakatok ka muna? At papasukin ka kung papayagan ka ng may-ari. Katulad din sa isang indigenous territory, you can only enter and implement any project or business when those having the sovereign right or control of the territory allows you to do so. It is not just being consulted, but to give their consent or approval. Okay? Now, these policies on this law on EBOS, the National Renewable Energy Program, the amendment of the Renewable Energy Act of 2008, the 2023 Green Lanes, next, are all efforts of the state and government to deliberately and systematically violate and sideline our right to self-determination over our ancestral lands by violating our basic right to free prior informed consent. Free means free from external pressure or manipulation. There can never be free if our communities are militarized. Okay? Free prior, meaning to say, before any project can be implemented in our territory, there should be discussion, there should be dialogues before any project. Hindi yung uunahin yung project saka mag-uusap. Free prior, informed. All informations necessary to give the communities brilliant decisions, or for them to be guided on what their decision would be, dapat lahat ng information ay naibibigay. Okay? Free prior informed consent, approval or disapproval. Approval or rejection. Yan yung ibig sabihin ng FPIC. So, practically, nothing about us It is saying nothing about us without us. Huwag nyo kaming pag-uusapan na wala kami. Okay? That's FPIC, and that's our right to self-determination. Okay? Now, in the Cordillera experience, since dito sa since 1904, kung kailan nag-operate ang Benguet Corporation sa Benguet Cordillera, sa yung Felix Mining Corporation also in Benguet in 1950s, and in 1936 the Lipanto Consolidated Mining Company again in Benguet. Lahat ng product ng mga ito copper and gold, and it was mentioned a while ago that copper is one of the critical minerals for the so-called transition. We should be clear, we should critique this transition. Yeah? Transition for what? It's practically business as usual, and a continuity of transition for plunder and further destruction of the earth. Because as long as the existing global production system, which is capitalist, it will always be business as usual, or in fact, more business than usual. It's not business, it's just business as usual. It's more business than usual. Using this greenwashing or this just so-called just transition, it's practically a capitalist paradigm of production, resulting in further destruction of the environment and for indigenous peoples, our way of life, because it is our land and resources that are being plundered. Now, with this so-called just transition that the Philippine government is going through, we have observed a resurgence of big approval of big mining applications in the Cordillera, and for example, this Makilala mining in Pasil, in Balatok, Pasil, Kalinga, a mining before in 1980s was closed because of its impact downstream in Kalinga. Now, its mineral production for sharing agreement was approved by the MJB this year, and this is a subsidiary of an Australian mining company, Celsius. Okay? And this photo also shows just recently, was it last week, if you monitored our statement, the certification precondition was issued by the NCIP to give way for the approval of the application for production sharing agreement 103 in Itogo, Benguet, which for a time this has been protested in fact until now. Pero again, tulang siya sabi natin, the NCIP, instead of keeping its mandate to protect indigenous peoples, it facilitates the violation of the rights of indigenous peoples, and in fact, it's a promoter or facilitator of large-scale destructive projects and dam projects and other extractive, destructive projects against indigenous peoples. There's another application in Abra. Can you next? No. In Abra, wherein the mines in 5 minutes left. Hindi pa ako nakapasok sa aking topic. In Abra, walang ibinigay ang NCIP na certification precondition, but the Mines and Geosciences Bureau issued a permit. And no less than the congressman of Abra filed a House resolution to investigate yung nangyari, addressed to the House Committee on Indigenous Cultural Communities and Natural Resources, yung NCIP, ang maganda naman ay nagbigay ng cease and desist order kasi wala nga binigay na FPIC. Pero tingnan mo ito paano nangyayari yung impunity ito, plunder with impunity ito. Because of Bongbong Marcos policy to fast track mineral development, that even his government agencies are in contradictory with each other, NCIP and MGB. MGB issued a permit even without NCIP issuing a certificate of precondition, and now NCIP is issuing a cease and desist order. So ganun yung nangyayari dyan. Tapos so ngayon yung sa mining to show na talagang binibilisan ay more than 100 mining applications. At talagang may resurgence of mining, so we expect a resurgence of mining plunder. And talking about transition minerals, we also need to discuss this in relation with energy projects, because in the Cordillera, there's so-called transition minerals, they say, is to provide itong clean energy transition. And if you look at the slides, there are 113 awarded hydro projects. Kasi nga sa transition nga to clean and renewable energy. So dadami ang dam sa Cordillera. Nitong recent na nangyaring parade of storms, ng magkakasunod na 6 na bagyo, di ba, binaha ang Cagayan, ang Central Luzon, ang Ilocos, dahil sa mga dam sa Cordillera. Ngayon, tatayuan mo pa ng 113. Okay? So, lalong babaha. So, itong, linawin natin itong so-called renewable energy, on the other hand, ay napakadelikado nito. Technical lang na renewable, pero ang epekto matindi. Lalong titindi ang climate crisis kasi babahayin ang mga tao, babaha ang mga tao. Look at what happened itong magkakasunod na bagyo. And in communities where you find these destructive mines and these dams, they are the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Mababaha, maglalandslide, malulubog. Okay? So it's not true that this will prevent a climate change, or it will address climate change or prevent flooding. They are the main culprit of flooding. Now let me proceed with my story. That's just the context, and just to show that indigenous activists and organizations such as the Cordillera People's Alliance, which was established way back in 1984 after the successful anti-Chico Dam resistance, and Cellophane Resources Corporation, were it not for these struggles, hundreds of forest lands in Abra Mountain Province in Kalinga would have been destroyed, and that would have ended up in a climatic catastrophe. Kaya yung CPA, in its defense of land life and resources campaign, matagal yan na pagkuan sa climate change. Okay, forward. Yan, very simple na yan. Kasi yan na yung topic ko, So yung direct relationship ng plunder sa militarization, where you find the projects being put up or they are targeted, there you find the deployment of the military. Okay, next. Yan, para lang, lang yan the regular troops lang yan ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. Kaya may parallelism mo, direct correlation yan sa sinasabi kong projects kanina. Of course, they are there for counterinsurgency, but pag titingnan mo din yung latag ng mga projects na ito, talagang akma sila. Because they are there as investment defense force. Okay, that's the point. Wala pa dyan yung PNP, Regional Mobile Group, and the military, the police units in all municipalities and all the provinces and cities of the Cordillera. Next. Okay. Now, thank you for giving me 2 more minutes. I am an Igorot. Yeah. And by the way, in the report of Global Witness, it says that kalakhan ng overlap sa ancestral lands ay sa Mindanao. Let me correct that. In the Cordillera, 60% of the total land area of 1.8 million hectares are ancestral domain. The Cordillera is the only region in the Cordillera where most of its population are indigenous peoples. And that's all ancestral lands. Okay? Just to put that on record. So lahat ng sinasabi ko, all the areas affected by dams, wind farms, key biodiversity areas, because in the interest of time, hindi ko madidiscuss ang mga yan. Lahat yan ay ancestral domains or ancestral lands. Now we have been defending our ancestral lands, fighting for ancestral lands, social justice. But instead of listening to our legitimate advocacies and campaigns and our demands, ito ang sagot, ginawa na kaming terorista. In 2006, I was part of, my name was included in a military hit list under GMA's Upland Bantay Layawan into. And many of my comrades were killed. Fast forward to the Duterte administration. In 2018, I was included in the more than 600 individuals in the petition by the Department of Justice to proscribe the CPP in terrorist organizations. But they have included more than 600 names. We challenged that in court here in Manila, and later on our names were delisted. After that, in 2020, I learned that I have a warrant of arrest because of murder in Kapalong, Davao del Norte. So the case was filed in Davao, in Davao for murder, because I am being accused of being part of a military unit who killed an Indigenous Lumad, when in fact the organization of Tiklunay, a Lumad brother, said that the murder was perpetrated by Alamara. Okay? So there were 11 of us, and I have never been to Tagum in my entire life, or Kapalong. So that was a case of murder. And in 2021, there was this wanted poster with a bounty on my head and a shoot-to-kill order against me issued by the Cordillera PNP chief. And so I was forced to seek protective custody by the National Bureau of Investigation. And again, that case was dismissed. In 2023, January, again, surprised to know that I have a warrant of arrest for the case of rebellion in Abra. Again, I was the alleged that I am part of an NPA unit who had an encounter with the military in October 2022 in Abra. So again, this is a case of red tagging wherein I am always being alleged or falsely accused of being part of an NPA engaging in murdering this or in a firefight with the armed forces, and some of them are killed in those legitimate encounters. My wife is with me, and you can tell her, ask her about the impact of this red tagging, because it included my entire family and my children, including the youngest one, ano? Yung ganyan, sige. Yan, sige. Now, in this terrorist designation, because they treat our legitimate struggles, it is not only criminalized, it's worse than that. It is demonized as acts of terrorism. Okay. And so these are our demands. By the way, associated with this terrorist designation is the freezing of our bank accounts. Kaya wala akong pera. And worst, I was designated as terrorist, but our organization, Cordillera People's Alliance, was not designated, and yet the organization's bank accounts were frozen. Okay? Noong July 10, 2023. Again, itong designation, napakaano ito, walang due process. Nabigla lang kami at sinabi na sa Manila Times na terorista na pala kami. Ano? Yung ganyan. Tapos ang tuloy-tuloy yung freeze cases of terrorist financing. And just the other day, we have heard that another colleague of mine na designated na terrorist ay may warrant of arrest dahil sa terrorist financing. So yung development NGO sa Cordillera, tapos yung mga kasama doon ay nasasampa na ng kaso ng terrorist financing, hindi lang sa terrorist designation. Now, just to wrap it up, we call for the genuine recognition and implementation of our right to self-determination, free, prior, and informed consent, abolish the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, and which in fact has played a key role in red tagging. In fact, yung NCIP red tagger pala yan. The former spokesperson of NTF-ELCAC was the former director of NCIP CAR and Caraga, and he has been red tagging CP and myself and my colleagues, and even yung dating chair ng NTF ng NCIP. So my conflict of function yung NCIP, is it for counterinsurgency or is it for indigenous peoples? Ganon, ano? Tapos so, kaya nananawagan na magandang na lang yan, i-abolish na lang yan. Kasi imbis na nakakatulong sa mga katutubo, problema tuloy siya ng mga indigenous peoples. We can support that, and we are confident of calling for that. At itigil itong red tagging and criminalizing indigenous people. So struggle, itigil yung pagbobomba sa mga katutubong komunidad at yung tuloy-tuloy na militarization, tapos yung pagbasura ng anti-terrorism law of 2020 and junking of the Terrorist Financing Prevention and Suppression Act of 2012 na tuloy-tuloy na ginagamit na ngayon sa lahat ng mga development NGOs at mga aktivista all over the country, at i-drop yung terrorist designation namin at lahat ng mga fabricated or trumped-up charges, and unfreeze the bank accounts of CPA and all other organizations unjustly frozen. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.